Are you planning a trip to Tuscany and maybe thinking about renting a car? Is it a good idea, or is public transportation actually better? Which one is cheaper, and honestly, what is the best way actually to enjoy and experience the real Tuscany? In this video I'm gonna share my personal experience based on 25 years of traveling in Tuscany. But let's jump straight away to the disadvantages of renting a car. Now, renting a car in Tuscany sounds so romantic, you know, driving your vehicle through the beautiful hills of Tuscany, but you should consider a few things. First off, you should know about the ZTL area, so Zona Traffico Limitato, which is basically an area inside the town or the city that is not accessible by car. This is typically the historical center of the town, and to be honest with you, it's an area you don't really want to venture anywhere with a car, because the streets become so narrow and you're gonna risk big time to actually scratch your car. In fact, a few weeks ago there was a photo of a tourist that ventured inside the ZTL because he was following the Google Maps direction and the car got stuck between walls. The second thing to consider is also parking can be challenging in the main destination. I'm thinking here about Florence, Siena, Pisa, and my suggestion here is to leave the car outside of the city center. For example, if you drive to Florence, leave the car in the Villa Costanza parking area, which is just next to the highway. So handy. It costs only 10 euros a day. You can take the light train from there, and with 1 euro and 20 minutes you are straight in the historical center of Florence. Now, I heard a few months ago that a criminal gang started breaking into cars, but luckily the company running the parking area employing a security force, and in the last couple of months there haven't been any breaking into the cars. Third point, talking again about criminals that may break into your car, and for this reason I always suggest to never leave anything visible inside the car, not even an empty bag. So take always with you the bags and the valuables, of course, and if you have really to leave a bag inside the car, put it into the boot of the car and make sure that nobody can see it from outside. Unfortunately, you need always to be alerted, but this happens mainly in the big cities and not in the countryside of Tuscany. I will talk later actually in the video in the places where you should be more alerted in Tuscany. Another point we should consider when renting a car is that fuel is actually expensive in Italy. Although it's in line with the rest of Europe, it's almost twice the price than in the US or in Australia. Another thing to consider is the price of a highway, which is very expensive. But honestly, if you rent a car for Tuscany, then you should take the secondary road where you're gonna experience one of the best landscapes in the world. And now it's time to jump on the advantages of actually renting a car. I probably scared you enough with all of the cons of renting a car in Tuscany, but honestly, if you want to experience Tuscany, the real Tuscany, then you should rent a car, in my opinion. And these are a few of the advantages I want to talk about. The first one being flexibility. During your trip you can stop in any village, any castle, any winery or any viewpoint that you're gonna encounter when traveling the countryside of Tuscany. And this is why probably you are in Tuscany, to experience the countryside. Moreover, you won't have any timetable. Just think you are in a beautiful agritourism in a farmhouse to have lunch, and you know, lunch in Tuscany is actually quite slow. We're talking about slow food experience, not a fast food experience. And then you have to rush up because there is a bus coming. Personally, I don't like to travel in Tuscany with this stress, and that's why I love the freedom to rent a car when I am in Tuscany. Another great point about renting a car is access to remote areas and hidden gems of Tuscany, and honestly there are plenty of them. I actually posted a video 2 weeks ago about my favorite 7 hidden gems of Tuscany, and honestly I suggest to include at least 1 or 2 of them into your trip. But also with public transportation it will be super hard to visit the spa areas, and there are a few spa areas which are so magical and also free of charge too. The third point is about flexibility, because with a car you can visit places whenever you want. One of my favorite things is to close the day with sunset in Val d'Orcia, and then after that dinner in one of the agritourism in these farmhouses for the beautiful fresh food they usually offer. This is something that is impossible with public transportation, and even if you take an organized tour, they typically finish in the late afternoon without the possibility to experience these beautiful landscapes of Tuscany in the sunset hour. Another thing you should consider is about the cost of renting a car, which may come actually cheaper if you travel in 2 or more people. Just to give you an idea, the cost of an economy car fluctuates between 20 and 50 euros a day based on the month you rented the car, and also how long in advance actually you're renting this car. On the other side, a train ticket between Pisa and Florence is €10 one way. Between Florence and Siena, the bus costs between 10 and 20 euros. And then possibly you have to budget in also the cost of the local transportation once you are in the city to go to your accommodation. So all things adds up. And it's not only about comparing the price of renting versus public transportation, but you should also think that you can have a beautiful accommodation just outside of the city, maybe in agriturismo, at a fraction of the price that you can have in the historical center. Besides that, you can have dinner outside of the city that is going to be also cheaper and fresh too. I keep talking about the agriturismo, but I am in love with them. These farmhouses offer some amazing value for money. And last, when you rent a car, you're going to save a ton of time because you wake up in the morning, you pack your bag, you put the bag into the boot and off you go for your next destination. This is something that doesn't happen obviously with public transportation because you have to go to the station or to the bus station or you have to change buses. You need to wait for possible delays and maybe strikes. I wonder why strikes in Italy always happen in the peak season, by the way. So there are plenty of uncertainties that you don't have with a car. Now, before jumping to the advantages of public transportation, I want to spend a couple of words on the best rental companies you can have here in Tuscany. Usually you have two choices. You can either go with the global names like Hertz, Avis, Europcar, or you can go with the local names. Now, what is the difference between these two choices? Well, with the global names, typically you have newer cars, they are available 24/7, and overall they provide a better service. Vice versa, with the local providers, they are definitely cheaper, but they may not provide the last car model. Also, English sometimes is not so well spoken, but honestly I don't mind that much because I always take a Google Translator with me any country I go and I solve this issue. What I do care is about the trust I can put into the rental company, which basically means no scams and no hidden fees. And the last 5 years I've been renting my cars from a comparative website that ranks every single car provider from 5 to 10 stars based on the feedback of the customers like myself. I typically filter between 8 and 10 stars so I can get the most trustworthy car rental companies and I just get the best price in the car range I want. So far I've saved quite a bit of money and I never had an issue. I personally suggest to add also full insurance, which on this website costs only 8 to 10 euros a day, just for the great peace of mind that you can have during your drive in Tuscany. I'm gonna leave a link to this website into the video description. Have a check. Book as much in advance as you can, also because cancellation is typically free of charge, which is great because a change of plans may happen. Now let's talk about the advantages of public transportation. The first one that comes to my mind is that public transportation in Tuscany is definitely affordable. As I said, with 10 euros you can easily go from Pisa to Tuscany by train and it takes only 50 minutes. You can go from Florence to Siena for about 15 euros based on the time of the day, and it takes around 1 hour 30 by bus. Which takes me to point number 2, that is the great connections of the main destinations of Tuscany. In fact, you can go from Siena to Florence to Pisa to Lucca, for example, to Arezzo in no time. For example, from Pisa to Lucca is only 30 minutes. From Florence to Arezzo, I think it's about 40 minutes if I remember well. So very easy going. And of course, with public transportation, you're gonna have a super relaxing experience because once you sit in your bus or the train, you can just watch outside until destination arrives. And lastly, the train and the bus is gonna be also a more eco-friendly choice. Unfortunately, also public transportation has its own downsides. The first one, probably the biggest one, is the limited reach. In fact, it works so well when you have to go from a major destination to a major destination, but in case you want to experience the real Tuscany, the villages, the small towns, the spa areas, then the public transportation doesn't work very well. There are in few cases local buses, but they are very rare, and once again you won't be able to do a tour, for example, of Val d'Orcia or Chianti area unless you book a day trip, but with a day trip obviously you are limited to the choice of a tour operator. The second thing is about the schedule that is not as frequent as you probably want to have. So if you're gonna miss a bus or a train, you may have to wait 1, 2, 3 hours until the next one comes, which is gonna take you to waste possibly half a day or even the full day, because maybe you're gonna miss the other connection. So it's gonna be a little bit challenging if you miss any train on public transportation in your trip. Another thing I have to mention is about delays and strikes of public transportation. This may happen, which is fine if it's a delay of 10-15 minutes, of course, but if you have a connection, this may cause a little bit of a trouble. So for example, from Siena to Pisa, you need to take 2 buses, and this may be problematic, of course, if there is any delay at the source. Of course, public transportation can be also a little bit more time consuming, and that's because you need to go to the bus station or the train station, maybe 20 minutes in advance just to check where the bus or the train is. And remember that English is not so widely spoken in Italy. So plan ahead, take your time, and don't be stressed. The last thing I want to mention is about the bags. If you have big bags, obviously it's so much easier to put into the car, into the boot. If you need to carry the bag with you, it can be really tiring, especially in the peak season in July and August, when it can be hot, 30 to 35 degrees. Typically the buses and the trains have air conditioning, so at least you are safe on that side. And talking of luggage, always be alert to have a check where your luggage is. For example, if you take a train or a bus, because there are always people trying to scam you, especially in the main stations. These are the worst places in Italy you want to be. These are the places where you're gonna have a ton of scams, because they know obviously that there are tourists around. Now, to sum it up, if you want to experience the real Tuscany personally, I suggest renting a car. This is how you're gonna experience Tuscany, as you have seen maybe on famous movies like Under the Tuscan Sun or lately Made in Italy. However, if you plan only to visit the major destinations, I'm thinking here about Pisa, Lucca, Siena, Arezzo and Florence, then honestly you don't need a car. However, if you want to visit Chianti and or Val d'Orcia, you will have to join one of the day tours. Now, if you're still unsure actually on what to visit in Tuscany, I'm gonna put a video here on the corner on the best areas to visit and experience in Tuscany. And with that, if you're still here, I guess you appreciate the effort in making this video. If you can, put a like, leave a comment or you're thinking about renting a car, and I see you in the next video in Tuscany once again.